kept promoting and promoting, and now, 45 years later, look what happened. I mean, now just about every medical report shows that how beneficial weight resistance training is for your body, for your muscles, for everything, for your health, for your heart, for longevity, for everything. And they're using it now for, the rehab after operations, especially after orthopedic surgery and so on. There is not one single hotel. Like in this hotel, you go downstairs, you don't even have to ask, do you have a gymnasium? Any and every hotel has a fitness room now, has a place where you can use weights and machines and all of this stuff. So this is what has happened. This crusade has been extremely successful because we stayed on it. So I'm proud of that I have been part, not me alone. Many people have been part of this fitness crusade. We've fought it together, and look how far we've come. And this is just the beginning. It will continue like that.
The one, the only, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I hate to be shorter than you.
I appreciate that.
So everyone having a good time? Yeah, good. Very nice. Well, as you know, every year we always do this kind of Q&A session, seminar, giving you a chance also to ask questions. And so I think it's all about for you to have a chance to talk to the champions, to talk to people, to the experts in nutrition, and to get a first-hand chance, to just ask those important questions if you're confused about anything. And this is as simple as fitness is, and as simple as bodybuilding is, but it also at the same time can get very confusing. And the reason why it can get very confusing is just because everybody is different. So you cannot really come up with 1 million different rules and regulations and ways of training. There wouldn't be enough magazines and pages around to do that. And this is why I, in my encyclopedia, have made it very clear that people have to figure out themselves. The most important thing is that you figure out yourself, your body. Because your body is different than mine. And my body is different than his. And his body is different than Franco's. And Franco's is different than Rich Park's was. And everyone is different.
Before we get into the audience, I've got to ask you, we've heard Mr. Lorimer's comments dating back to 1970, the Mr. World competition. You get a call from a gentleman named Jim Lorimer back in 1970. And he says, I want you to come out and put in on the Mr. World competition. You have the universe on Saturday. What was your thoughts on, he said, I'll fly you out, get done with the show, win the universe, get on a plane, we'll have you. You had to think this was crazy.
Well, my plan was not to go to Columbus, Ohio, or to travel anywhere else. My plan was very clear, and that is to win the Mr. Universe competition in London, and then 2 weeks later to go to New York to win the Mr. Olympia, and to beat Sergio Oliva for the first time. He beat me the year before, fair and square. He was fantastic. He was someone that I've idolized. I thought he was very incredible, his physique and everything. So it was, in a way, fun because he was really up there that I looked up to, and I said to myself, I have to climb up there and I have to beat this guy. And so those were the two competitions. I felt that Mr. Universe contest would just mean another Mr. Universe contest. And at that point I have won 4 Mr. Universe contests. So I said if I go to 1970, I could win the 5th one, and that will give me momentum to go to New York for the Mr. Olympia. And all of a sudden I get this phone call from a guy by the name of Jim Lorimer. And he started talking to me about the competition, and I was in the middle of training. And so I said to him, look, I'll call you back when I'm finished with my workout, because I don't want to go and start thinking about your little rap that you have right now about why I should come to Columbus. Let me concentrate on that later on. Right now I want to concentrate on my training. And that's exactly what I did. And I finished my workout, my 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever it was, and then I called Jim back, and we talked about the competition, and he really sounded like someone that was very serious and that had his act together. And he also told me that he organized the Mr. America competition in 1967 in Columbus at that stage, and that now, for the first time, because of his great success in American championships in weightlifting and at the Mr. America competition, that the AAU and the International Weightlifting Federation came to him and said, we want you to organize the World Championships in weightlifting and the Mr. World competition right after that. So he said, so we are going to do an incredible job, we're going to have a sold-out auditorium, and blah, blah, blah. And it really sounded attractive. And so I said to him, I said, well, the date that you're giving me is literally the next day after the London Mr. Universe. How do we do that? I haven't checked into the flights yet. I said, but it seems to me, mathematically speaking, even though we will fly with the sun coming from the east to the west, and we gain time, but still it doesn't work out with the changing the planes in New York and all this stuff. So I said, let me check into it and then let's work on this. And then we checked into it, and sure enough, it didn't work. And then he arranged a private plane. Now, if you imagine, now I'm like 22 years old, or 23 years old, and I've never flown on a private plane. I mean, I just started flying planes, on planes when I was 19. The first time I ever got on a plane was when I was 19 years old, when I flew from Munich to London to the Mr. Universe contest, right? So, and now all of a sudden I'm flying with a private plane, which was, I think, owned by Volkswagen, and somehow he got them to fly us from Columbus, from New York to Columbus, all of us. I brought Dave Draper, Boyle Cohen, Franco Colombo, and brought all those guys from London, from the Mr. Universe competition. And that's why he got in touch with me, because he knew that I was kind of the leader of the pack. And so if I go, then they all will come. And this is exactly what happened. And I also found it very attractive that Sergio Oliva is going to compete, because I felt like, wow, that could give me real momentum. Now, I come directly from the Mr. Universe. If I could beat him in Columbus, but of course there was no guarantee, I said, well, I'm going to take a shot at it, If I win in Columbus, then it will be a no-brainer in New York, 2 weeks later. And so that's exactly what happened, and I was very happy, and it started, not only did I win and against Sergio, and then against Sergio again in New York, but it started this relationship with Jim Lorimer that was extraordinary, because he became kind of like a mentor, father figure to me. And I was so fortunate when I was that young to have so many of those father figures. If it was Reg Park, if it was Joe Weider, if it was Jim Lorimer, people that I could talk to, people that could share their wisdom, so that I could really learn very quickly at the age of 23 or 20 or 25 or whatever age I was in.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, sir, you have a question right in the front.
Arnold, my question to you is, in your book, Total Recall, you make mention of people like Jim Lorimer who coached you and all these other people. I'd like to get some input on your mindset for success. You have accomplished multiple successes in different industries, bodybuilding, movie industry, now in the event centers. What is your mindset when you start taking on a project?
Well, I think that weightlifting and powerlifting and bodybuilding have really helped me in learning about what it takes to be successful. And I think that, there's certain kind of principles, like for instance, work your butt off. I mean, there's nothing like working hard. There's no shortcut to success. So it's all about working hard. And I learned that in weightlifting. The harder I trained, the more I listened to people's good ideas on how to train, and how to use the food supplements, how to use foods and stuff like that, and how to relax, and how to make the body recuperate quickly and all of those things. The more I listened to that, the more I incorporated those things, and the harder I worked, the faster I made moves forward and won. And so this was one of the things, was like, work your butt off. As a matter of fact, later on in life, when I came to America, I had no money. Joe Weider gave me a little bit of money, but he didn't want to give me more than a little bit, because he didn't want me to get used to kind of like having a safety net either. So he gave me enough that I could live, but he didn't give me enough to have food supplements and to buy myself a car, to have nice clothes, anything like this. I haven't worn a suit when I came over to America for the first 3-4 years. I didn't have the money to buy myself a suit. That was not a priority. But Franco and I, we started therefore a bricklaying business. So even though we were Mr. Universe and Mr. World over and over again, we got into the bricklaying business, and we worked hours and hours every day. So I was going to community college at that time, and I was doing the bricklaying business and doing bricklaying jobs, and I was working out, 5 hours a day, and I was going to take acting classes at night from 8 o'clock at night to 12 midnight every second day. Sometimes every day when it gets closer, then later on to a movie and stuff. So we worked really our butt off. And I think this is the key thing that people need to know. There is no such thing as a shortcut. The other thing that I've learned very quickly from lifting was, don't take no for an answer. People will always come to you and say, this can't be done. I mean, when I was having these enormous dreams to be a Mr. Universe, a world champion in bodybuilding, and then go to America, I mean, everyone said, you're out of your mind. I mean, these are crazy dreams, you're a little bit off, and I talked about it in Total Recall, how my mother thought I was totally sick. I mean, here I had all those photographs on the wall in my bedroom of my heroes, from Reg Park and Paul Anderson lifting 400 pounds, and of Muhammad Ali and Sonny Liston and all those powerful, strong boxers and lifters and bodybuilders and all this. And my mother looked at that and she called the doctor, our local doctor, who was there for everything, no matter what it was. If you had some kind of a problem psychologically, or if there was a kind of a feud between the parents, or if the children got into trouble or whatever, they always called the doctor for everything. And so she called the doctor and she said that she showed him my bedroom, and she said, I mean, what's going on here? I mean, my son has all those pictures. I mean, his friends have pictures of beautiful girls, and my son has only pictures of naked men up there on the wall. I mean, do you think I should be concerned about something here? And so he had to explain to her, no, not at all. But so the thing is that everyone just said no, and it can't be done, and you will never make it, and there's a crazy dream and all this stuff. And I didn't listen. I continued on. I had a very clear vision where I wanted to go, and then, of course, with the age of 20, I became the youngest Mr. Universe ever. And my dream started slowly becoming a reality. And this is why I'm a strong believer to always, tell people that one of the rules is don't take no for an answer, and forget and don't listen to the naysayers. Because they always would say that it can't be done. And it's like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela was actually the one that said, that everything seems to be impossible until someone does it. And then everyone said, oh, it is possible, So I always felt like I should be the first guy to try it, to make it possible. And so that's what I did. So it's another one of those rules. So you have certain rules like that, and I learned those from bodybuilding, I learned this from lifting, and those rules helped me then later on, no matter what I did. It was always like, dream big, shoot for the sky, and especially like in politics. Right away when you get into politics that you're not the only one that's making up the rules, right? So there's already laws existing, and you have to deal with 100 legislatures, and then you have to deal with the lieutenant governor and the secretary of state, and you have to deal with all of this kind of people, and they all have their own ideas of things. So how do you get things done? So if you shoot for the stars and you reach half of it, because there's always half that will be against everything, I mean, if you think about 20% of the people hate their mother. So I mean, it's knowing that, it's very hard to get the 100% popularity to have everyone agree to everything that you do. But we did that. We accomplished more than half of the things that we set out to do, and then some things were left on a plate and we couldn't get done. But that doesn't mean that you should give up. You always keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and always have a positive opinion about things and attitude. And I think there's a tremendous joy in struggling and in climbing to the top. Remember that every mountain climber that climbs Mount Everest, they always say that the most fun thing was the challenge to climb up there. Then when you're on the top, then what? Then you hang out for a little bit and then you go down again, right? It's not like you're gonna say, wow, now I'm here, now I'm gonna stay here for the rest of my life. No. So it's that climb. It's starting to figure it out. How do you get enough oxygen to get up there? What kind of equipment do you need? When is the right temperature? And all of those kind of challenges. What stages do you go to slowly get up there? And so that's to me is the joy, to take on big projects and big challenges. And when people then say, oh, this is really hard. I mean, you cannot do that. You cannot run for governor. I mean, you have no experience politically. I mean, you should run first for mayor or for senate or something like that. It can't be done, And then you just do it, right? I mean, it's like what happened when I ran for governor. I mean, I announced at the night show, and then 6 weeks later, I was governor of California. And I say, oh, now what? But this is the fun thing, to do those things, to take on things when people say it can't be done.
Thank you very much.
Sure, absolutely.
Arnold, you mentioned some of those father figures as you were growing up, especially in your early 20s. Joe Weider being your friend and mentor from back then. This is the first Arnold that we've had without Joe since he passed. Our good friend Peter McGuff reminded me of a story that he wanted me to kind of pass on. And he wanted me to ask you about, in 1969, you went to stay with Joe in his New York apartment, and he said you had an altercation with an antique chair.
Joe Weider loved antiques, and he dragged me to many antique shows. And he also took me to many art auctions. And I knew nothing about this. I mean, I wanted to get big. I wanted to get bigger deltoids and better abs, and figure out how can I lower my calves, and how can I get a more creative posing routine together. Those were my thoughts, but not to figure out that here's a piece of furniture from from France, from 1628 or something like that. I mean, so what? So anyway, so Joe would take me to these places, and then when I went home and stayed overnight in his condominium, in his apartment in New York, he had this beautiful big apartment, and I stayed there overnight. It was right after I visited Sergio Oliva in 1969 and trained with Sergio Oliva in Chicago. Then Joe wanted to know and have a full report what happened when he and I trained together. And he was all excited, so I had to tell him for hours and hours stories about me and Sergio working out together. And then it came evening, and then he said, okay, here's your bedroom. And he said, just I want to make sure that you understand, he says, these chairs that are here, these are very old antique chairs. They're hundreds of years old, and they're fragile, so please do me a favor. And when you sit down, you can use them, but just be careful, because you're a big guy. I mean, they were not meant for big people. The French people were not that big, And so the next thing I know is he says he leaves the room, and he, good night, Arnold, sleep well. If you need anything, let me know, and all this stuff. Bye. Okay, bye, Joe. Thank you. So I take off my pants, and I get stuck. And all of a sudden I fall over. And I fall over the chair. And the chair crumbles. And it totally falls apart. And I'm lying out there on top of this chair with one foot out of my pants, and the other one is still stuck in there. And I'm looking at this chair, and I said to myself, wait a minute. This must be one of those antique chairs. I mean, I was like freaking out. I said to myself, Joe will cancel everything that he probably has promised now if he finds out that I just wiped out this chair. And so I said, he's going to send me back to Austria. And so I then got up, then put my pants back on again, and did one smart thing, and that was that I didn't put the shirt back on. So, so I was all, I looked big. And so I knocked on Joe's bedroom door, and I said, Joe. He says, oh, God damn it, what's wrong now? Bastards. And Joe comes out, he probably took some sleeping pills already, so he was half wiped out. And he opened the door and he says, what? And I said, can you come to the room here? I said, what you said about the antique chairs? He says, oh yeah, they're wonderful chairs. And then I took him in there and it was like broken there on the floor, and he looked at that and he started screaming. And then he caught himself. He says, oh, don't worry, I have a guy that can fix it. And, but I mean, you should have seen his reaction when you saw this broken chair that he treasured so much. So, I mean, I learned a lot about Joe, about, how he blows up and how quickly he controls himself then and pulls back. And then he was very gentleman-like, and he didn't want to make me feel bad. And, calm me down. He says, no, don't worry about it. I have someone that can fix it and all that stuff. So that was kind of that incident where, but it was one of those things where I felt like this was like a copy of what happened in the military when I drove the tank. And I would drive through the wall by accident, and and the pipes would blow up, and the gas pipes and the water pipes and everything like this. The bricks will fall down and the ceiling will come down, and I had to go to the commander and said, can you check this out quickly? I made a little mistake. And then the guy blew up also and just went crazy on me, and then finally he toned down and could relax a little bit. So.
Arnold, Joe Weider impersonation. But I can't help but notice, when you actually do an imitation of Joe, you don't have any accent. How do you do that?
Because I'm imitating Joe, who had a little Canadian accent, but he had his own way of talking, and I just loved it. I mean, it was like,
Do it again.
He loves bodybuilders. He loved bodybuilders, but at the same time he hated them. It was one of this love-hate relationship. And he loved them because they have this enormous physique, and they work hard in the gym and all this. But then a lot of times in the West Coast, bodybuilders were lazy bastards. And Joe would say that. He says, oh, those bodybuilders are such lazy bastards, eh?
See what I mean?
I put them on a cover, I build them up, give them all the food supplements for free, make them famous, and then they screw me, eh? I don't know what's wrong with those bastards. So this is kind of like the things that you were...
Trust me, folks, if you heard Joe, you'd say, that's him.
It was like, Frank and I, we were laughing our heads off, whenever we heard all this, ranting and raving about everything. And it was true. I mean, Joe it was so refreshing for him when he met Franco and me, because we wanted to work. We didn't want any handouts. We wanted to work. We wanted to create a construction company. We wanted to work in his office. We wanted to work in his warehouse. We wanted to learn about, marketing. We wanted to travel around with him and learn about how he sets up the distribution businesses in Japan or in Germany or in England and stuff like that. We wanted to learn, and we wanted to quickly get with it, because Frank and I, we were here for business. We wanted to get rich, we wanted to get talented, we wanted to get smart, and we wanted to have his experience and learn from him, from people like Joe Weider, and he had all this experience. So bodybuilders usually just wanted to they want to work out, then they go to the beach and lie on the beach and hang out, and then they wanted to go to Joe Weider for money. And say, why don't you give us some allowance? Why don't you give us some money? You're using us in the magazine and all this kind of stuff. So they always wanted a handout. And so Joe hated that. And this is why he loved Frank and me, and that's why we had a special relationship with him.